Welcome to Voices in Hyperspace, where friends get together and discuss the hit 90s space opera Avalon 5. Let's go.
I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Captain Melisila.
And this is Sunday.
We're looking at Season 3, Episode 13, entitled A Late Delivery from Avalon. And I will be transparent from the beginning. When I was a kid, this was not my favorite episode. There were so many TV shows doing the King Arthur thing. I remember, too, there was like I don't know if it was a History Channel or what it was, but there was this resurgence of the King Arthur myth where some lady was telling a story about a paranormal encounter where she thinks that she made love to King Arthur.
How did I guess that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's almost someone sleeping with a ghost.
Yeah, the 90s was full of Dr. Crusher syndrome, so...
I wonder if, like, something about it went a public domain and everyone decided to jump on it.
I know we had movies, but I wonder if I remember, did the Highlander TV show do a King Arthur thing? I don't put it past.
So it's all King Arthur thing.
Yeah, right. There was probably a movie. I feel like there was like an attempt to make it into like a superhero thing. And what was that movie that came out? Knights of the Round Table? Was that it? In the 90s?
Oh.
It was, yeah.
It also makes me think about, in the was it the 90s or the 80s? We had like, I know in the 80s, Dungeons and Dragons was a big thing.
Yeah.
And it was Dungeons and Dragons show. And it's kind of like we go through phases of like just our pop culture obsessing over things. Like for a while it was zombies. At one point it was vampire.
Oh yeah.
I guess we had a King Arthur stage in the 90s.
So yeah, they went through those. They went through those phases. I guess, is it a 10-year cycle? Because now we're on the Wolfman in 2025. We did Nosferatu a little bit ago.
Yeah, that movie just came out. There's vampire.
Yeah.
Again, a little while ago it was post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, they're about to do zombies again.
Right before. Yeah, it was like right before the pandemic too.
Yeah.
It was a zombie. Like that didn't work very well with The Walking Dead and iZombie and Will Smith doing this thing that he do.
They're supposed to bring that. They're supposed to do another. Yeah, I Am Legend. They're supposed to do another one of those, and another Book of Eli. Somehow.
Okay.
Because Gary Oldman and Denzel Washington were in it, acting their butts off. So in the episode, the transport liner enters Babylon 5 jump gate, and it's the Asimov. Sheridan and Ivanova are talking about like, geez, it's been a long time since we gotten ships coming in to dock, and since we've seceded from EarthGov, it's been real hard times. And they have a little bit of a back and forth, but what they revealed was they had been relying on the Minbari for such a long time. So the Minbari are just there helping out as much as they can, but ain't no money coming in. And I don't know about you, but 250,000 people on a 5-mile station, you got to pay people. Otherwise, things are going to disintegrate pretty quickly.
They have to create their own little closed-up system of commerce within the station. They already had a system of commerce, but it also was connected to Earth. So now they have to close it up, but it still needs income.
Yeah. They got to figure that out. Because also, like, their officers, how are they getting paid?
They succeeded. They're not getting paid from the government no more.
Exactly. Speaking of not getting paid, Garibaldi is directly reaping the consequences of that choice. He goes to pick up a package from the postmaster, and come to find out, his package is going to cost him 100 credits. This is one of those situations, again, I don't know how much 100 credits is worth, how much 50 credits is worth, how much 20 credits is worth. It seems like a lot, but I don't know.
He says that before the conflict, that package would have cost him 30 credits.
Okay.
So it being more than double.
That, yeah, it's 3 times the amount.
It being way more is understandably frustrating, but the conversation to me made it seem like Garibaldi did have it. He just didn't want to spend on like the principle of the matter. And that is irritating to me to like, you understand the position that this postal worker is in. They're not making the decision. It's a little different than the the merchants that were taking advantage of Jakar when the war came and they were charging him, twice the amount for guns that he had sold to them when they were in need, right? That was just straight up exploitation. In this situation, the postmaster is like, yo, this is wild. We in the middle of some shit and I don't really have any other choice. Like I'm pulling at all resources to even get this package here. Or then the audacity for Garibaldi to try to bribe the postman with the temptation of the unnecessary things that were in that package, such as, what was it, pepperoni and some kind of fucking cheese? Like, those things aren't even essentials. Why you in here crying?
Right.
No, I'm not gonna say that.
I'm gonna say Garibaldi is a weirdo because they did all this stuff to break away from EarthGov. You know how things work. You don't want to pay the money. It's almost like he is ignorant of the circumstances that he's in. You know what I mean?
So he is a kind of a parallel to Londo. He's just as sneezy as Londo, but he's not to the extent where he's genocidal. Right. He's just that petty. They're equally petty.
It makes me also think of like how apolitical centrists can be. Garibaldi comes from like a blue collar family. He works hard. There's a long line of cops or whatever. He knows how to do certain things, but it's like he doesn't think dynamically at all unless he's trying to get in somebody's business and set somebody up. And we'll figure out, we'll show you later in the episode because he kind of does that, but he gets outsmarted. So the Asimov shows up and we see that a man is experiencing a haunting nightmare involving doors, explosions, a sword. He's tripping balls right now. It starts to feel weird because you're like, who is this person? I've never seen him on the show before. Turns out this is going to be the person that this whole episode revolves around. So then we see Dr. Franklin. He's in Down Below. So this is kind of like some worst case scenarios when you think about it. When a state goes independent and then they run into, financial troubles. Also, the station has a plague, an outbreak of Banta flu. Like, people are getting sick. This almost comes across as like, this is on purpose, right? People would think that now. And it's our good friend Marcus Cole with his fabulous hair is there. He's talking about how you get Banta flu, which is weird. It's eating rotten human and alien food waste.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite understand it, but I think that it has to be like a bacteria of some sort. Maybe. Who knows? But that stuff is spread.
Ferment. So,
yeah.
Does a bacteria create when it's fermented, or a virus? Or is there a virus already in this? A virus already in the alien food. You would think it would need to be a particular alien food, not any alien food. Right? It's just not from Earth. So therefore, if you mix it with Earth food and ferment it, it'll do this. Like,
yeah, it's a little weird, but it's a bunch of people getting sick.
Very soft.
Yeah. And also you have to think about it. Babylon 5's Down Below would be a breeding ground for those type of diseases. So all of that stuff is coming together at the same time. So anyway, Franklin decides to quarantine the level and orders the most serious cases to be transported to isolation. They talked about the perspectives of the lurkers, which, okay, how come nobody ever really thought about, like, okay, since the station is independent, why don't we take care of these people that are here now? You know, after checking his patients, Franklin talks about Marcus's ranger pin, and this is where we learned a little bit more about the Rangers and about Marcus. Marcus explains the symbolism, the unity between human and Minbari fighting a common enemy, which this is great. And he talks. This is where Marcus goes on, and he shares kind of like a monologue about what he learned in his journey becoming a ranger. And he talks about how he learned how to live, how to breathe, how to die. He doesn't talk too much about his training when it comes to like using terror, but it made me think like Marcus has been learning psychological warfare, and that makes me think like the Minbari are pretty psychological, but they also philosophical. They know a little bit more than the humans know. Or at least the Minbari, like, let's think when this came out, the Minbari then knew more than what humans knew then. So, like, the stuff that we know now, maybe they knew that stuff. I don't know. But it could explain why Marcus is such good friends with everybody.
I really thought that it was interesting when the doctor was interested in the teachings after he found out that, oh, they teach you how to be cool and, you know, how to use that and how to experience it and come out on the other side. He was like, I'd like to learn that. And Marcus telling him that, no, I really don't think you do. Like, you think you want that information, but you don't. And for me, it just goes to show that in order to be like a surgeon, to go through an emergency situation and cut a person open, we have to have a certain mental fortitude to even be capable to do that in and of itself. So it wasn't shocking to me that he would be interested in such teachings.
And of course, Franklin would want to know because he wants to have more tools to fix things. But maybe, just maybe, Franklin, greatest human being in the whole galaxy, he might have a little competition with Marcus. We quickly switch. There's a the passenger. He's being hassled by security, and they're like, "Nope, you need to stop. You need to give us your weapons." He's like, "Nah, son," and he pulls out this big ass sword. And then he pontificates. He's talking about how he's Arthur Pendragon, the king of the Britons. He's like, don't you know who I am? I ain't been gone that long. It's like, bro, who are you? Don't nobody know you. If I were security, I would be dumbfounded. I would be like, what in the hell is going on right now?
Especially since they're short on people and they were trained by Garibaldi.
Right, but there's supposed to be Narn there.
Yeah, we didn't see any.
I thought the Narn had been relieved after, like, the efforts had been won.
I thought the Narn were gonna be the new security team.
Yeah, because after that was when Malari was in line. It's like the line had taken so long because Narn are slow and dumb, and so they can't really this job be doing it. Blah blah blah. That was after everything.
Yeah.
Wasn't the Narn being seen as slow was a stereotype, a negative depiction of them, but it was really that there wasn't as many of them as there were of human. And they weren't using the humans because they didn't know who was a part of the Earth Alliance and who wasn't.
I got you. Okay. Yeah.
I think they were short all together, too. Like, even if they put the Narn and the humans together, they were just short.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true. But we didn't know which ones we need to sort out because they were still lurking somehow.
Yeah. Well, whatever, that none of them were here, but Marcus shows up and he's, he kind of stands in between the sword and the King Arthur character is like, I recognize your accent. You're a fellow Briton. I am not going to resist the urge to say one white man recognizes another white man and is like, "Oh, you cool." So,
The other security were white. They just weren't the right kind of white.
yeah. Well, it was the accent. It was the accent.
Yeah.
So then I guess it's one British actor recognizes another British actor, and they're best friends now.
Yeah, and he was recognizing him as king after he announced that he apparently is Pendragon.
Mm-hmm. Which is basically Marcus kind of playing into the character's delusions. And this is where I'm starting to pay attention and where I'm like, I don't know if anybody's doing anything healthy at all right now. You know?
I think it was a great idea that for the safety of a mentally ill person, we don't need to shoot them down.
Correct. Yes.
Find a way to get them to calmly come with me. Then we can follow the standard protocol. However, Damian is going to lay out here in just a second. They do not.
No, they don't. They don't.
Like, damn, y'all let me down. Like, come on. So you get to pretend to be a king and get special concessions. But you got these people down below that are literally,
beating each other up. Yeah.
No help.
Right. And I think I see what you and Mel are saying. Like, yeah, let's calm things down, make sure nobody gets hurt, especially if this person is having an episode. But they are very hands off at this point. We also have to remember that I think Marcus understands psychology. He's taking a very gentle approach so he doesn't cause harm. So that's something to consider.
And we've seen Marcus help people in Down Below. It's passive because it's just him walking through Down Below. It's like, oh, hey, I helped this person get this connection and stuff. And he does it so nonchalantly that it's not like showy. You don't pay attention to it that much because it's just him walking through Down Below or running into someone that he needs from Down Below. And also the way he handled this guy with the whole author thing.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of my kids in my class where our guy who wants to be author to my students. So Marcia is giving into the whole playing into the character of him being author is similar to me bringing a kid to the table with blocks. Like they don't want to come to the table because they're playing with blocks. And I've seen like other teachers take kids away from their toys and bring them to the table and the kids fight and cry and run back to the blocks. And I'm like, here, I take some of the blocks that they're playing with, put them in their hands and walk them with the blocks to the table. And they're more susceptible to sitting at the table as long as they still have their blocks. It makes for a nice transition because that's where their mind is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I transitioned it into, my criticism of how the system has got a lot of things set up in a class divide to where, okay, it's when the people are coming off of the shuttles and there is no understanding of like what class they're a part of. They get to go straight to the med bay and be assisted. Because they find out that you don't have enough credits to be up here, you get sent down below. And Mel is assessing that, there are people that go down below and help the people. And I know that I'm appreciative for Dr. Franklin and whoever else is assisting him going down there and helping the people. But why do they have to be down there in the first place? Why did they come up and be assisted? And I am trying to, verbally process through that critique at the same time as offering a potential solution. But if there wasn't a class, if there was free health care, everybody would be going to the same place and getting the same service.
Yeah, well, and also him getting off the station, they were going to shoot him. He put out the order right away out their gun. The only reason why he got to go to Met is because you had the first and second greatest people in the universe.
Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah.
You literally have Franklin and Marcus, who do nothing but care for other people, show up. That's how he managed to get there. That's the only way.
And let's be honest, like, granted, a PPG would have lit him up, but he would have chopped somebody's arm off at least. Like, there was a lot of danger in that situation.
Do they not have gun setting on their firearm?
Nope. PPG is just a superheated round, so it won't. It's not like a solid round, like a slug. And that's to keep it from penetrating the hull, so they don't die in space after shooting people. But it's a way for them to keep guns in space, but not like decompress the whole station. So.
Right. And in contrast to Star Trek, they don't have a stun setting.
Right.
They just does.
Right. And we've seen in the past, like, people be having like electric fingernail things. They could make it if they wanted to, but no, they want to kill people in space.
That's wild. And I was thinking about Mel talking about how they were trained by Garibaldi. Whoever trained them, Marcus and Dr. Franklin, they need to trickle down some of that knowledge to the policing staff, because there's a better way to handle these situations than just run in guns blazing.
We just talked about how Marcus explained that he had gone to training on Minbar.
Yeah.
And Franklin's just stubborn, and he is, I think, part of his trauma response is to care, because his father is a Richard. And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's still fighting his father, even though they come to terms with it. He still has that internal foundation to contrast his father, and his father just could not care about human lives, so he's going to care about human lives. And it doesn't matter where this empathy comes from. He's just an enormously empathetic person. He'll kill himself to be empathy to other people. And that's who we're dealing with in this particular situation.
Yeah. So moving on, they take him to med lab. Franklin wants to do all these tests. He's doing DNA and fingerprint scans, and they're having a conversation. The guy is insisting that he's King Arthur. He's returning from Avalon in the time of need, but he has no memory of any of the modern reality. Only the Arthurian. I can't even say the word. The legend of King Arthur, and Franklin is just like, bro, what are you talking about? You are tripping. And Arthur kind of goes into this longing trance state, and he talks about how he remembers dying on the battlefield, and it sounds real. That was another thing that a lot of these shows did. They would try to bring some of these myths and legendary stories to life through a character, and how maybe they could be telling the truth. They want the audience to believe for a few minutes. They want, they're grabbing you, they're pulling you in. And that's kind of what's happening here. In the meantime, Marcus is talking to the senior staff, and he's explaining the Arthurian legend to them. Garibaldi, our brilliant security chief, why doesn't he know? Why wasn't he there? Anyway, he seems skeptical, and Franklin is talking about the historical truths behind the story. And this is the thing that I'm talking about. The 90s always wanted you to think like there might be some truth to some of this stuff. Sheridan kind of brushes it away. He's like, okay, that's whatever. I just need to focus on these real world matters. I got to get some cash up in here. Marcus mentions the possibility of Vorlon intervention, which, okay, now we're starting to feel like these two worlds are connecting, because the Vorlons have been involved with Jack the Ripper. Why not an Arthur character? Because think about it, the last Shadow War is 1,000 years ago. The Vorlons had the technology. The humans were kind of fighting feudalistic wars against each other.
Oh, look at them fighting.
All right.
The war, feudal war, but the kind of small compared to what the Vorlons are doing.
Oh, yeah, right. It's like, look at these little monkey people throwing rocks at each other and poking each other with sticks. So mid discussion, Franklin finds out that Arthur has escaped because you ain't holding that guy, and we see where he goes. Now here's the thing. Again, this dude is in chainmail and has a sword on him, and people are just letting him walk around, no problem. He finds himself in Down Below, as you would if you had no money. While this is going on, there's like this Celtic music playing in the background to really try to set the mood. He finds this old lady who's laying down and she's crying. Basically, she was robbed of a photo of her husband, and Arthur is like, why would they take that from you? She's like, oh, the frame. It's because the frame is very expensive. And he's like, okay, I'll get it back for you. The Arthur guy catches up with the thieves, and it's funny. Okay, so the main leader has a guy by the collar. He's like, now look, why are you making me do this? You know I don't want to do this, but you're making me do the things to you that you know that I'm gonna do. He sounds like an abusive husband. He sounds awful.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He's shaking this guy down, and then the Arthur character is like, unhand him. He's like, you have something that doesn't belong to you. I suspect that you have many things that don't belong to you, but we'll just start with a picture frame. And they're like, they're all but laughing at this dude with a sword. And he's like, I got a lot of friends, so I ain't giving you nothing. And the guy's like, no, you need to come up off of that picture or you and your friends are gonna die. And the guy's like, I don't think so. He has like a pipe in his hand. There's a bunch of people around him. And Jakar, who's just hanging out down below, hops down, like he vaults down a flight of stairs, is like, I'm his friend and we'll take you all on. And then fight breaks out and they beat the crap out of all these people.
I have thoughts. I see it as very interesting that a person who holds the title of king can have so much compassion for a poor person that's hungry, but be so blind to the fact that if you're the king and anybody's hungry, it's your fault. And instead of trying to find a way to redistribute the wealth, because I'm pretty sure the king got food, you want to try to get this picture back for her so she can participate into your commerce to get the food. Make it make sense.
Come on, Sunday. Listen.
From being he just woke up from a 1,000-year sleep. I got nothing but a title.
Right.
If he really was the king, right? Let's say that the men, whatever it was, the people who is the one alien that got the Jack the Ripper dude together?
Vorlons.
If he was, done by the Vorlons, but just was not as aware as Jack the Ripper was, because he really was walking around like, I am the king. Yeah. Now all you trying to get back to is your kingdom to fix the problems and like care for the poor people. And there ain't no examples of kingdoms where the kings are sharing their wealth with their people, because if they were, they wouldn't have been overthrown and then eventually ended up in some other kind of economic system. So they don't get no breaks.
And the sword King Arthur. Huh? Well, that's why King Arthur legend is a legend, because in that storyline or whatever he was inspired by, that he did have a prosperous kingdom, and he didn't get overthrown. He died in battle, and everybody else who he trusted that could have continued that died with him. He put all his eggs in one basket. So, well, like what I would guess, because I don't remember the whole story, but I have seen so many of the stories. It was prosperous. That was the point of him being chosen one. And then whoever defeated him is the one that messed things up after he died, because they killed him and took over. So yeah, he did get dethroned, but it's not like, because he lost, he got killed.
So I think there's a little bit of overthought here, because this guy who's pretending to be King Arthur hasn't mentioned a dime the entire time he was there. Um, we don't even know if he stayed anywhere other than he was in Med Lab. So it's like he showed up on the station, goes to Med Lab, and then kind of escapes and immediately goes down below. He's been there for a couple hours, so he's not engaging with money at all. And also, part of his delusion doesn't involve him paying rent. I'm thinking we might like he likes the romantic version of Arthur, because even later when he's talking to Jakar about what his version of the kingdom was, he's like, we're supposed to be a kingdom of laws, not of force. And it's like a philosopher king, but you still have like the monarchy, the hierarchical rule. It's still feudalism.
Yeah.
And the people might be happy that you rule over them than a mean king that's going to tax you to death, but still those people still belong to the king. And also, he didn't say that Babylon 5 was Avalon or Britain.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just visiting it,
He knows he's out of place.
Yeah, it's
that's not his kingdom. He's gone somewhere else.
Yeah, when you apply the lens of like class consciousness to this particular story, there's a lot that the writers are just not considering. Because, I mean, we've been ignoring the down below people all season. Well, all series. People have been blowing up, getting stabbed, possessed by aliens. It's wild.
Well, and we also are looking at someone in the lens of a delusion to compensate for a trauma.
Yeah. So
that was the focus. And then we also just saw Franklin take people from down below to Med Bay.
Yeah, true, but it's always like a few people. This could also be kind of a parallel to the larger universe, like spoiling parts of the story that will be revealed shortly. But the Arthur character, he was a soldier at the Battle of the Line. He could be representing the good-willed and good-hearted, but ignorant people of Earth who are out there venturing in the galaxy. And while they don't know any better, they feel like that they have like this prestige, like we have arrived to the galaxy, and yeah, they're not taking care of their own people, at least not in a great way. But we'll kind of focus there just a bit, because there are some conversations that happen pretty quickly. So, they beat up the lurkers, and Jakar is feeling great. So Arthur and Jakar are sharing a drink, and as much as we see Jakar eat, we don't see him drink a lot. And so this dude is chugging down whatever they're drinking, and he is drunk, tripping balls.
It was so funny watching drunk Jakar.
Yeah. They have a little bit of a heart-to-heart, and they're talking about the Knights of the Round Table, and Jakar is like falling in love with this idea. And the Arthur character is like, I sense in you a priestly manner. Like, you're a good warrior and you're kind of priestly. And it's like, yeah, that is true about Jakar. Like, Jakar, super strong, will fight to the death, but he's had a spiritual awakening recently. And he has like this kind of humble moment where it's like, yeah, it's true. Arthur recognizes like how awesome Jakar is, how his dual nature, and he dubs him as a knight of the new round table. And I think he called him the Red Knight, which we haven't really spoken about this before, but Jakar, he has red, his eyes are red, which is so freaky when I look at it, because I don't really think of his eyes being red until they zoom in and like, oh yeah, he got red eyes.
I'm always thinking about what those contacts feel like.
They probably were awful, especially in the 90s.
Because you could feel, like, I've heard, because I bought a pair like that, but they're black. I didn't open them yet. But they pretty much cover almost the whole eyeball. And like if you turn, you can feel it on the sides where your eyeball connects to the rest of your head. Is that too much information?
Yeah, we got to do some more cosplay, Mel. That would be fun. Um, yeah,
Oh yeah, I haven't done my cosplays in a while. I've just been dressing
yeah, doing your goth.
captain thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the
Goth.
captain thing too. Yep.
It's a goth captain. So yeah, they're both right.
Yeah. So Garibaldi is frustrated about the whole situation. He instructs his security team to go search for Arthur while he goes to deal with another matter. The other matter is him and one of the security team are trying to break into the post office to steal the package.
That's what police do.
Right. Exactly. He's like trying to what's the word? Confiscated. Submitted for evidence. I don't know. But he gets thwarted by the postmaster, and the postmaster is like, you know what? That's another 20 credits for you messing up my lock, son. I'm charging you. Back in down below, Arthur talks about the tragic tale of Camlin Field and how all the Arthurian stuff. And Jakar is very moved by the story. And this is a story of kind of like guilt, honestly. He's like, we were so close to peace, but we did this thing, and instead of us having peace, we have a war and everybody died. And he feels so much guilt and pain from it.
Yeah, effect for, because despite, how they're taking all the spoils and the money and, not equally sharing it with the people, from what I understand, even though the kings also send their men out to fight and stuff, at some point in time, they be out there too. And they, keep in the line of fire. I don't know in how much danger they're actually in, but sometimes they, would die in battles. Mm-hmm. To have had an opportunity to resolve a conflict and through to like a language or cultural barrier that you made a bad military call just because you didn't know no better and it wiped out like all your men, man, that hurts. And it reminds me of Ender's Game and how the humans were being harmed by whatever the alien species were.
Oh, the Formic.
Alien. Yeah, they eventually understood that like they didn't know that they were hurting like individuals. They didn't know that they weren't a hive mind like themselves. And it's like, no, one of us is individual and you killed a whole bunch. It's crazy. And they're like, oh shit, our bad.
Yeah. So what happens shortly after that, Marcus shows up because he knows how to find people while Garibaldi's over there screwing around, stealing stuff. And he convinces Arthur to return to MedLab, citing like, hey, you know what? If you don't come back, man, these people are going to deal with some horrible consequences. We can't have that. And the author character is like, you know what? You're right. I think that's the second time that happened. He appealed to his sense of justice to get him to like not fight security before, and now he's doing that again to get him to go back to MedLab. Jakar is like, I'm gonna go with you, and he stands up, which he makes a mistake because bro was down in them drinks while he was sitting down. So he stands up, tries to walk, and just timbers over forward and breaks the table. It was a nice humorous spot, but also was like, you know what? Bro probably shouldn't be drinking so much.
Well, he got up and made a satisfying.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. In the council chambers, Sheridan and Ivanova are advocating for Babylon 5 to be a vital hub of commerce and negotiation despite the turmoil. And they're passing out these booklets to explain like a new treaty with Babylon 5, for people seeking defense and contributions in exchange for the station's services. This this kind of sort of reminds me of when Hong Kong was released from British like as a British territory in the 90s. Remember that? It was like, it goes back to the mainland. But then China was like, no, they're going to stay an independent city for a while because we don't want to like take away what they're doing in commerce. It's vaguely reminiscent of that. I know India did the same thing. Like the British Empire was giving up a lot of their colonies, right? But there was a lot of problems that had to be faced, and this kind of reminds me of that. They got like Babylon 5 has to figure out like how are we going to proceed forward in this new reality. And this treaty, basically, he's trying to get all of the aliens to contribute to kind of buy in.
And I thought that this was going to be the part where King Charles was going to share his insights from where he came from. And this is how you bring all the people together and give everybody a voice.
Not at all.
Right. That's what I thought was going to happen. And it didn't. And I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Marcus informs Franklin that Arthur was found. He shows him that, you know, he hasn't committed any legal violations. Like, bro's cool. He hasn't killed nobody. Even though they did, like, rough up a bunch of people. But Franklin, at that time, gets really serious. And he talks about Arthur's true identity, who is a former Earth Force soldier. And Cole reads this and he's like, you can't tell him. You cannot tell him. And then Franklin puts his foot down. I was like, nah, like, we got to tell him the truth. It's going to be hard, but we got to be hard on him. And I think this is where Marcus is like, isn't your oath to do no harm? And that's a good point. But Franklin was like, no, in order to wake this guy up, we got to tell him the truth. And this is where, as an audience member, you gotta start to wonder, like, what is the best course for these people? Are we going to violently disrupt this person's delusion, which could potentially like cause irreparable harm to him, and maybe be violent to others, or do we let him stay in that delusion, kind of willy-nilly, and never confront the truth? You know?
Yeah. I don't think it's that black and white. I think confronting the truth can be a process, especially when it comes to trauma healing. It has to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And in this episode at the end, he's like, I'm healed. I'm like, no, you're not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because he never changed. He stayed King Arthur the entire time. Yeah. So, after that conversation, Arthur, he's in bed experiencing a vivid nightmare about the Minbari ships. And he's like, honestly, this actor is doing an amazing job, by the way. I don't like the way he was shot as depicting his trauma, but I think the way he acted and his facial expressions and his body language, all of it was pretty good.
Yeah, they most definitely found a Shakespearean.
Oh, yeah. That's why him and Jakar did so well, because they were both like seasoned actors and they just played off each other way too good.
Yeah.
So Franklin identifies the King Arthur guy as David McIntyre, a former Earth Force gunnery sergeant responsible for firing the first shot against the Minbari. And this is where we got the whole story of like, oh, this is why the Battle of the Line, the Battle of the Line happened, because when the humans came in contact with the Minbari had their gun ports open, which scared the humans. And the humans were like, instead of us waiting to see what they do, let's fire first so we can survive. That killed a Minbari leader, like a very important Minbari leader. And the Minbari responded by like, let's exterminate all of humanity. And I don't know about you, but if I survived that and I knew exactly what happened, that would haunt me too.
Yeah, he pretty much feels responsible for the almost genocide of his entire species.
Do you actually heal from that?
No.
I think in this case, though messed up, it really wasn't his decision. Was
Exactly.
ordered to do it,
Yeah.
not the one who made the misinterpretation, made the decision, and then the consequence. He was just a soldier that was told to push a button, and he pushed the button.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, on a very enormously small scale. Because, like, I've had kids lose out on fun activities that they didn't lose the privilege to, but maybe other people in the school didn't understand the kid, so they just got kicked out. And I'm like, and I have to be the one to sit there and keep them away from everybody because my principal did not like me.
Yeah, he was following orders, but at the same time, he's still a human. He's still an individual with all of the complexity that is within a person. I don't care how good or whatever, how much military training you get. There's a human being in there still, even though they try to like murder the human being to turn into a killing machine. If the results of your action ends up in the near genocide of your people, you might feel that a little bit.
I hope so, because I'd be a little concerned about the drone pilots that they have, like, out here just really bombing women and children. And what is that doing to the psychological profile of those people? The same as the men and women who are working in the factory farms and shooting, killing all these animals. Like, I know that fucks them up, and that sucks.
Yeah.
I know someone that was in the military who did like special forces things, and literally you had to be a psychopath or a sociopath to do that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. To have a psychological profile to say this person does not care about other people's lives. Let's put them there where they have to take out other people's lives.
We'll explore that a little bit more later. There's some things that happen in this episode too that we're gonna have to like push off to other other episodes because we just can't spoil things. After McIntyre has this conversation with Franklin, he's overcome with grief and he imagines himself being chased down the hallway, and there's an armored knight that comes up behind him and stabs him, and bro cries out loud in pain. And he just sits down and he slips into a catatonic state. And that was very sad to see. That was very sad to see. Franklin made this dude face his trauma, and bro was telepathically stabbed in the back.
He broke him.
It broke him. It did not help. Really quick, we see Sheridan and Ivanova celebrating the treaty, but Ivanova shares that there's bad news about McIntyre's mental state. Franklin laments that he's like, when am I going to learn that I can't fix everything? He theorizes that McIntyre's mind was shut down to protect itself from further pain. And I'm sorry, yes, it was you, Franklin. You did this. You caused this harm. Oh, man.
A lot of medicine is a trial and error. He tried something, he erred, and then he consults someone and tries something new. That's what you're supposed to do, right? That's it.
Yeah, and this is where I feel Sunday. Franklin is the doctor, and he thinks that his medical training, his experience trumps everything. Marcus learned how to fight, how to get information. He learned how to social engineer people, how to he learned how to get into people's psyche. And he's like, you can't tell them the truth. And he was, granted, he wasn't right, but he was right as far as don't break this dude's mind. You know? They're trying to figure out well, what do we do? Well, apparently what McIntyre was on Babylon 5 for was to return Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake. Marcus and Franklin are sitting back and forth trying to figure this out. What do we do? If Excalibur represents the burden of the king, that's the ship, then who's the Lady of the Lake? And then they both realize, like, oh, it's Delenn, which of course is Delenn, right?
Just you could have been walking him and slow rolling him through his trauma in the first place.
Exactly. I agree. I'm gonna bookmark this part because I wrote a note. The importance of using Delenn as the Lady of the Lake will be revealed in later episodes. It is far more significant than you think. But we're gonna highlight that, and then we're gonna move on because this is all this symbolism. And what they do, they go find Delenn, and she appears, which now Marcus is hallucinating about a hand coming towards him in a hallway, and it's Delenn in the I guess med bay in the room, looking over him, and he hands her the sword, and she takes it. And this is the symbolic granting of forgiveness to him due to his actions in the war. And having received this symbolic closure, he wakes up and emerges from his catatonic state, acknowledging Delenn's forgiveness and offering her silent gratitude. This was actually a powerful scene. And I swear, if Babylon 5 had more of a budget, this would have broke people's hearts. It would have been great. And that's the other thing, too. Like, as much as we like to see space battles and stuff blowing up, this was more about a person's internal struggle with themselves. And trying to find, needing forgiveness, needing closure. Because, like, you don't get over having all the people in your company killed and then your whole species almost wiped out of the galaxy. Like, you don't just get over that like a cold. You know. So we're about to wrap up the episode. Garibaldi finally goes to the post office. He offers to pay the 100 credits. The clerk is joking around. He gives him like a banged up version of his box. He's like, ha, 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 just a little post office humor. And he, like, puts that away, and he pulls out the real one, which is pristine. And Garibaldi, the dirtbag that he is, he reveals that Babylon 5 has severed its ties with Earth. And the post office guy's like, yeah, you know, if you guys didn't do that, prices wouldn't go up. Basically saying, like, it's kind of your fault. But then Garibaldi's like, since you're not getting paid from Earth, who's paying rent here and who's paying for the rent in your quarters? And bro is just like, well, I see. Oh man. And then Garibaldi is like, yeah, nobody's paying for your stuff, son. You owe me now. I got you. And then bro is like, okay, so how much do I owe you? He's like, you know, I'm willing to overlook this whole thing for 101 credits. And this will ensure that the post office remains open. It kind of, you can see that the postmaster is actually upset because he got caught. Like, he was charging people these prices and stuff, but he had no support. Not really.
Mm-hmm. So he was taking advantage the same as the people from the merchants?
If you think about it, kind of, because he wasn't paying rent. Not by himself.
Oh my goodness.
He wasn't paying rent for his quarters or for his post office. It was taking up space in Babylon 5, and he's just running it like, if I don't say nothing, it'll be all right. And all I got to do is just raise prices a little bit, and I'm going to be okay. Garibaldi finally figures this out.
If he didn't raise them so much, he wouldn't have got caught.
True.
You raised them like 1 credit for all the people that go through there, you would have had enough money to cover your stuff.
Right.
So that's how I do it. $1 a year. No problem.
Yep. Now, I'm pretty sure after the treaty that Sheridan and Ivanova came up with, they would have figured out, like, man, how come ain't nobody paying the rent for this place? but yeah, he got caught.
Well, indeed, they need commerce to flow through so that the station has more money in general.
Yeah. Yep.
So that should hopefully trickle down to more jobs for more people.
I think we'll have to save this conversation for another episode too, because I got a lot of problems. I got a lot of problems with how they do commerce on Babylon 5. But let's just say, yeah, they're hoping to bring more jobs to the station. And I think they want to bring more ships, which will bring more income. Because also, like, the docking workers, they got to get paid. Honestly, how were they getting paid for the past couple of days? That's a good question. Maybe that money that Sinclair had negotiated for them was enough for a little while, and they gotta like cover that now. I don't know. As we wrap this up, Franklin and Jakar are escorting McIntyre back to the docking bay because he's leaving. And all right, this is part I have a little bit of an issue with because Franklin's like, "I wish you were staying so I could test you some more." And he's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm cured." Since when does a doctor let a patient go before he's done with them?
Was he ever admitted? Because Franklin's not a therapist or psychologist. I mean, he was into medical bay, but he didn't have any medical issue.
So when you want to have the paperwork that says that you understand that you're refusing medical care.
Marcus and Franklin reflect on the idea that Babylon 5 may have inspired the Arthurian legend. And this is where Marcus kind of goes off the bat like, you know, these different people are the different characters. This is Arthur, and this is Percival, and Galahad, and whatnot. And Franklin is like, what are you talking about? Like, that is not the real King Arthur. He's like, and Marcus is like, well, next you'll tell me that he's not the real Merlin. And he points right at, Kosh, which Kosh was there, and Kosh was like, what are we talking about? He was just walking by for some reason, though. I don't know. But, and then we end, and it's kind of like happy ending. So that's the episode. So we got a little bit of a rough psychological journey, going through someone's pain and their trauma, and I'm not sure that's a happy ending. He joined the Narn to help like build up the resistance there, but bro is walking around thinking he's Arthur.
There are a lot of people who use fantasy in order to cope with real life situations. I was actually talking to a friend about Community, and how the one character would escape into his little fantasy, like sci-fi fantasy worlds, to process what was going on with him and his friends, because he had to like think it through more.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's acting it out instead of it being a mental fantasy. Like the character in Community, he could separate when he had his fantasy in order to process things. When I write stories, I'm often processing a lot of the mental health journey that I've gone through in a fantasy world. That's common, but when the trauma gets to be so much that you can't really function fully, you can't think about the real world, you can't analyze when you're going to think through things.
Mm-hmm.
You either shut down and fully go into and live in what that trauma is, or you fully shut down and live in what you're going to process it with.
And if you had like, if this McIntyre guy had someone to walk with him through that journey, because I've been on a journey of like seeking therapy and trying to find someone to help talk with me and walk with me through some things. It's like, if you had that person to walk with you, it doesn't necessarily equals a solution, but it equals community. And that is actually healing too. And I think that's what Marcus was trying to do.
Yeah. And there's also trauma usually comes from a situation in which you perceive yourself to be in danger, and your mind doesn't process the fact that you're no longer in that danger. So, a sense of community is how humans have evolved to deal with danger to survive. We have communities not because we want to, but it was out of necessity in the evolution of humanity, if you believe that. Because there's some people who don't believe in evolution, but in my case, scientifically, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
It's how we're meant to live. It's kind of like a tiger's strength, or I don't know, any attributes that any of the other animals have developed in order to survive. We developed community in order to survive. Mammals have community that helps them survive. And when you live, when your mind shuts down and believes that it no longer has that community, or it believes that it's no longer a part of that community, that can be a trauma response as well, a trauma.
Yeah, you feel isolated.
Yeah, people being teased back in the day have the same mental struggles and the physical things that go on in the neurons go on the same way it would if someone has held a gun up to your face.
Wow.
Because they're being cut off. You either being cut off from your life or you're being cut off from your lifeline. And community is a lifeline. So it does the same thing to your brain as it does an actual life-threatening situation. A lot of people don't know that. And like, if, oh, you're bullied, that's nothing. You shouldn't, this shouldn't be anything wrong with you. When you have the same things wrong with you as someone who came back from war mentally.
Right. And
if you know how far, yeah.
And I've heard similar things about people like, my mom used to beat me all the time and I grew up okay. We should always beat our kids, you know. And like that is a habit and a practice that became tradition from breaking slaves. You know, to keep the kids out of trouble with the masters, you got to beat them up so they listen. And it's like, we got to get, like, some people have to get, how do I say this? What has to happen is people have to move past these survival mechanisms and into building community and thriving. But the unfortunate part, what gets passed down is the trauma itself. And then the repeating of those traumatic patterns. And people do things that they don't know why they're doing them. They just know, like, this is what happened to me, so I got to do to you.
Yeah, and the same thing in the book My Grandmother's Hands, which is somewhat similar to The Body Keeps Score. Separate in the Grandmother's Hands, he is a Black doctor actually talking about trauma responses in the body holding on to trauma as it pertains to race in America, particularly white bodies, flat bodies, and cop bodies. And he also went into European history, where it was very common for people to be shamed, tortured, bullied, and it was just the everyday normal thing. And they became so desensitized to it. Going to other countries to do that to other people was just normal for them. But it became our trauma that they brought to us, but they already had that trauma. It's hard for me to like see the trauma that Black people have without seeing the fact that they had it first. Even though they did it to themselves, it's still like a trauma that in their RNA, the trauma that gets passed on through the womb. And the only way to like truly heal from that is to find coping mechanisms, is to go through a daily practice of healing your responses and teaching our children how to go through the process of healing those responses before they even get them, on top of not giving them to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this episode, while I originally didn't like it, spending some time thinking about it, started to like the way that it approached this topic. And it's kind of one of those things where I wish they had a little bit more time, but you know, it for what it was a decent effort and actually pretty entertaining. And that's why they had to like tone the episode down. wasn't so action packed. There was a fight scene and a flashback of like a space battle, but really all of this was in the person's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Babylon 5 does a lot with mental health in a time where people did not consider mental health. Like talking about mental health or kind of therapy was taboo. And they found their fantastical ways to address it in a public manner that was done before. They had to water it down in order to get it out the way they did. And I don't think the public would have understood. I still don't think the public understand.
No, because we're, the field is so new. Like, granted, it's been like 35 years since the show ended almost. And like, even now, like a lot of stuff that what is being learned about psychology, about counseling, about mental health and healing is still cutting edge only for like the last 10 years,
Yeah.
And they're trying to they're changing ableist and racist language so it can like fit the people that are seeking health,
Mm-hmm. Another way in which Babylon 5 was enormously progressive.
Yes. Yep. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We're still on TikTok, y'all. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. And you can follow me, Legendary Black Lion, on Instagram. And once I get it sorted out, I will let y'all know what other platforms that are not so popular in America that I'm going to be on. But along with that, I have some really cool plans for our Instagram and our TikTok. I'm going to talk to Mel about it offline, and we might have something really cool happen with that within 6 months. So yeah.
I'm Mel Asylum. You can find me at Mel's Rebellion wherever you go to social media except for X. Oh,
yeah.
I have an X. I do not use it. If you come there, you will see old posts of my old book. That's about it. I have a website, melsrebellion.com, and you can find me there, and you can find some of my social media there too. And Countdown to Unrooting the System.
Yeah.
Which might be coming out on time. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. Thank you all for joining us. You can find Sunday at the poker table, which is where she is right now. And we'll see you out there.
Bye.